Hello creators, it's Melissa from Melissa's Creations. Today we're making this adorable tea card and matching tea matchbook using the Tea Together stamp set from the Occasions catalog and the Tea Time framelits dies from the Celebration brochure. I cased this design from the Celebration brochure. You can see right here. This is the original design, and I think I did pretty well for what I had on hand. I did change the background color and some of the other colors on it. I did not have this designer series paper, so I used our buffalo check background stamp, and I think it came out really nice. And then I just mimicked this design on my little tea matchbook holder thing. And there's a little tea packet in there. This would make just a really nice little gift or a little place setting if you have a tea date with some lovely ladies. And I'm really excited about this card. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how I put it together. We're going to start by cutting our base. I have my Stampin' trimmer here. And instead of the beautiful Highland Heather that was used on this card, we're going to use another new color, Balmy Blue. So this is a regular piece of 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock, and we have very little waste on this project, and I'm really excited about that. So with this whole piece of cardstock, I can get 2 of these non-standard size cards. These are 3 inches by 5.5 inches. So you can get 2 of these cards out of 1 piece of cardstock, plus enough to get 1 tea sleeve. So it's a lot of bang for your buck on this cardstock here. So the first cut that I want to make is to trim off 2.5 inches from the 8.5 inch side. So I'm going to put that in at 2.5 and trim that off. I'm going to set this aside for a moment. We'll do the tea sleeve after our card. And now with my remaining piece here, I'm going to cut it in the middle at 5.5. And now I have the 5.5 by 6. So I'm going to rotate it so my 6 inches is at the top. And I'm going to score it at 3 inches to get my card base. With our tea wrap piece, I need to do a couple of score lines before I cut. So the first score I'm going to do is at 1 inch. And then we will score it at 4.5. And finally, we're going to cut it at 7.5. With the remaining piece, we're going to trim this down to measure 2.25 by 2.75. This is going to be the mat on our wrap, and the only waste that we have from that colored cardstock is this. Now we're going to trim down a sheet of Whisper white cardstock. Now, if you have scraps, use them by all means. I don't have scraps large enough to cut out as many tea cups as I need. So what I'm going to do is cut a standard piece of cardstock down to 5.5 by 8.5. And because I'm doing this, that gives me 1 full card base out of half. And then with the other half, I can do all of my stamping and cutting out. And from this piece of cardstock that I'm going to stamp and cut out, I do want to trim 1 piece down so that I can use it for my buffalo check down here. So that piece needs to measure 1.5 by 3 inches. So I'm just going to trim it down to the 1.5 here. And then I'm just gonna cut it at 3. We're going to start by stamping our buffalo check onto that 1.5 inch by 3 inch piece of cardstock, the Whisper white that we cut. So I'm going to mount my buffalo check stamp onto one of the plates on my Stamp-a-majig. So I'm just going to set this down, and it really doesn't matter where because it's such a large stamp. I can really place this anywhere I want and it'll get totally covered. What I do want to try and make sure is that I have it as even with the grid lines on my paper as possible, so that when I go to stamp my small piece of cardstock, it's pretty square. So I'm gonna pick up that stamp onto my plate. When you set down your piece of Whisper White cardstock, you wanna make sure that you note exactly where you put it down, so that if you need to re-stamp it, you have the placement that you need to put it back in. So I am lining it up with this line here and this line here. So that's a 2-inch line and the 4-inch line. So I am using our Tea Together stamp set from our Occasions catalog, as well as the Tea Time framelits dies, which are a celebration item. These two items coordinate, so you can stamp and cut out super easy. We're going to use both of those products today. I have mounted up the teacup, the little flower, and the sentiment. So we're going to stamp those in Memento ink onto our Whisper White piece of cardstock. Now, to do both of my projects, I need 4 teacups and 2 of these stamps. So we're gonna do quite a bit of stamping with the Memento. I'm going to use Poppy Parade as my text color. So that's what I'm going to use to stamp my sentiment. These will be fussy cut out, so it doesn't matter if you stamp them a little close. I'm going to set these aside to dry before I color them in. And in the meantime, I'm going to get my card base and my small tea wrap mat. And we're going to stamp those in Balmy Blue with our flower stamp. It's going to give us a watercolor effect to stamp it in the same color. So I'm going to take my bone folder and fold my small card base in half before I do my stamping, because I want to stamp off the edge to make it look like it's a very random and natural pattern. Going to use my bone folder on the tea wrap so that I can crease those score lines. Now we're going to do some coloring. So I do have some Stampin' blends here and a couple different colors in some different shades. I have the dark Pool Party, both dark and light Poppy Parade, and both dark and light Old Olive. I'm also using a Stampin' Write marker in the So Saffron. I'm going to start with my dark Pool Party, and this is going to be used to shade the teacup. So this is dark Pool Party on here, and to contrast that, I used light Pool Party on these teacups, so you can see the difference. It just depends on if you want a very light touch or if you want a darker touch. The other difference between these two, I used the brush tip on this and I used the fine tip on this. So you just gotta play around with it a little bit and see which one you like better. So I'm going to mix those two. I'm going to use the dark Pool Party, but I'm also going to use the fine tip. Let's see how that turns out. And to color in my flowers, I'm going to start by using my dark Poppy Parade. I'm using the brush tip, and I'm just going to put a little bit right towards the center, just a couple little strokes there. Then I'm going to use my light Poppy Parade with the brush tip, and I'm going to kind of blend that out to the edges. I'm taking my light Old Olive, and with the brush tip, I'm coloring in the entire leaf. And with the dark Old Olive and the fine tip, I'm just going to put a little squiggle down each leaf. And finally, with the So Saffron, I'm going to color in the middle. Now we're ready to cut these out on the Big Shot. So the sandwich for our framelits dies, we're using the magnetic platform, a cutting plate, our cardstock, our dies, and one cutting plate on top. Using our snips, we're going to fussy cut out our two sentiments. Now we can start assembling our card and our tea wrap. So what I want to start with is putting down my buffalo check piece onto my card base. To do that, we're just going to use some good old snail. And we need to do a little bit of alterations to some of our teacups. So we need to leave 2 teacups with the little doily underneath, and we need to cut it off of the other 2. Okay, so now we need to alter a couple of these teacups so that they can stack inside one another. So I'm going to use these 3 on my card. This is the bottom piece. This is going to stack on top here. And then this one is going to stack on top here. Now I want to make it look like the teacups are actually inside one another. So I'm going to grab my foam mat. And you can either use an X-Acto tool or you can use your snips. I use my snips, they work just fine. And on the bottom teacup, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm trying to cut on top of the black line so that I can still see the black line when I put my other teacup in. So very carefully, I've cut that apart. You can see there, it looks a little messy on the inside, but when you put the teacup down in, it doesn't look too bad. So on the middle teacup, this one is a lot easier. What I'm gonna do is cut from this angle, and again, staying above that black line, I'm just going to cut all the way through, just barely to the end. So it's still connected on this side. So then when I stack the teacups this way, I can just slip this one right in like that, no problems. And this part will be covered by one of those gorgeous flowers that we colored in earlier. All right, let's get this onto our card base. So I'm going to start by popping up my bottom teacup with the doily underneath. And I'm going to use my dimensionals for that. You want to make sure that you stay away from the part that you cut so that your other teacup can slide all the way in. So I'm going to put these 2 at the bottom and then this one just a little bit higher in the middle here. I'm also going to use our mini Stampin' dimensionals and put one on the handle. I'm going to place that down here. And I've made this pretty much straight so that I can wobble my next 2 teacups. So this teacup is going to go right in there. Now you want to make sure you don't put any dimensionals on the bottom of the teacup where it's going to stick to the cup behind it. So my dimensionals are pretty much going to go here and here, and then maybe one on the handle there. I want to make sure that I leave enough room to stack my next teacup inside. All right, so this teacup is going to be wobbling off to the left. And finally, the last teacup is going to wobble a little to the right. And I'm making it so that these 2 handles here just barely touch. I'm going to put that flower down with some mini glue dots, as well as my sentiment. All right, the card is done. Now let's finish up our T-wrap. So for the T-wrap, I'm going to use a hole punch. This is a 1/8 inch hole punch. And what I want to do is get the flap out of the way. I'm going to leave this 1 inch piece folded, and I'm just going to, right in the middle here, about 1/8 of an inch in, I'm going to punch a hole. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. I have some of our Whisper White Baker's Twine, and I'm going to thread it through the front, across the back, and from back to front. And you're going to leave a little tail on either side so that you can tie a bow. Before I tie my bow, I have a tea packet here. I'm going to set that down in the fold, and I want to make sure that my baker's twine is on either side of it so that when I pull it tight, it kind of holds it in place. And the reason why I'm putting this baker's twine here is to give this tea wrap kind of a matchbook effect, so you can tuck the front behind and it'll stay closed. Now we're going to build up our front. So I'm going to pop my teacup up with some dimensionals. I'm placing the teacup a little higher than normal because this portion is going to get tucked underneath our little flap here. I'm going to glue the flower down with some glue dots. And I'm going to pop up my sentiment with some mini dimensionals. I'm going to take some snail on the back of that and put that right onto my tea wrap. And there we go. And there we are, creators. There is our beautiful card and matching tea wrap. Don't forget to click on my link in the description box for my coordinating blog post, and you can hop around to the Creators Blog Hop. There are a lot of talented demonstrators participating this month, all featuring beautiful celebration items. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please be sure to give the video a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified of future videos. You can follow me online at melissascreations.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/MKre8tions. All the links are in the description box below. You can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest with the handle @MKre8tions. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!